Have you ever felt that certain moments in your life are not mere coincidences, that something greater is at play, something deeper than chance? Today, I invite you to embark on a fascinating journey through the mind of one of the most influential thinkers in history, Carl Jung. What you are about to discover could change the way you see the world. Jung believed that there is no such thing as coincidence, and that everything that happens has a deeper purpose that connects us to our inner selves and to the universe in mysterious ways. If you're watching this now, it's not by chance. You were meant to be here. Get ready to dive into ideas that challenge fate, explore the unconscious, and invite you to understand the true meaning behind your encounters and experiences. What you're about to discover could open the doors to a whole new perception of life. The idea that there are no coincidences may seem difficult to accept when we face adversity. However, when we explore beyond appearances, we find that even the most challenging events contain a hidden logic, a purpose that we can only understand by connecting the dots backward. Every setback, every detour, and every apparent loss are pieces of a puzzle that, over time, reveal a clearer picture of who we are and where we are destined to go. To understand this, we must change our perception of chaos. In physics, chaos is not the absence of order, but a complex system that operates with a logic beyond our immediate understanding. Similarly, the challenges in our lives are not random events. They are part of a larger flow, a movement that leads us to where we truly need to be. This principle is reflected in theories like the butterfly effect, which teaches us that even the smallest actions can have a profound impact on the bigger picture of our existence. When we begin to see our lives from this perspective, a new question arises. Why, then, do difficult moments feel so overwhelming? The answer lies in our resistance. The human mind is designed to seek control and stability, but life, in its essence, is a constant flow of transformation. By resisting change, we perceive challenges as threats instead of opportunities. But when we release that resistance, when we allow ourselves to flow with what is happening, we discover that even the most painful experiences are shaping us, preparing us for something greater. Think of the transformation process of a caterpillar into a butterfly. Inside its cocoon, the caterpillar literally disintegrates into a liquid state before being reborn as a completely different creature. From the outside, this process might seem like a complete destruction, but from within, it is a rebirth. Similarly, the chaotic moments in our lives are not signs that everything is lost, but indicators that we are in the middle of a deep transformation process. It is in this disorder that the magic of growth truly occurs. Now let's reflect on the apparent contradiction of everything being against you, but everything being in your favor. This enigma holds a powerful truth. What seems like a force pushing you down is actually the same energy that propels you forward. Quantum physics offers an interesting analogy, the concept of wave-particle duality. The same entity can behave as a wave or as a particle, depending on how we observe it. Similarly, the events in our lives can be interpreted as obstacles or as catalysts for growth, depending on our perspective. The key is how we choose to view our experiences. When facing difficulties, it's easy to fall into the trap of victimization, of believing that the world is conspiring against us. But what if that against were nothing more than a force designed to strengthen us? Imagine a river encountering a rock in its path. From a limited perspective, the rock might seem like an insurmountable obstacle. However, the river does not stop. It flows around, over and through the rock, and in the process it adapts, it strengthens, and it continues on its course. Similarly, the rocks on our path are not there to stop us, but to teach us how to move forward. At this point, it's crucial to mention synchronicity, that mysterious, meaningful coincidence that seems to arise at the most unexpected moments. Carl Jung described synchronicity as the intersection of external and internal events that have no apparent causal relationship, but are deeply connected in meaning. These synchronicities are reminders that the universe does not operate randomly, but with an intrinsic order that transcends our linear understanding of time and space. When you begin to pay attention to these signs, you realize that coincidences are not mere accidents, but winks from the universe indicating that you are on the right path. Perhaps you are going through a crisis, feeling lost and directionless, and just at that moment someone appears to offer encouraging words, or you read something that seems to answer your deepest questions. These moments are like points of light in the darkness, reminding us that we are never truly alone on our journey. Furthermore, this idea is intertwined with the notion that our intentions and emotions act as magnets, attracting experiences that resonate with our energy. The law of resonance holds that we emit ions that interact with the universe's energy field, and these vibrations determine what experiences manifest in our lives. When we cultivate an attitude of trust and openness, we begin to attract circumstances that reflect that same energy. However, to align with this resonance, we must first accept the place where we are now. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It means recognizing that every experience, no matter how difficult, has a purpose. It is by accepting our circumstances that we can begin to transform them. This leads us to a fundamental truth. The power to transform our lives does not lie in changing external circumstances, but in changing our relationship with them. As we deepen this understanding, a shift occurs in our perception of time. What seems like a setback or delay is nothing more than a realignment by the universe to bring us in sync with something better. Time is not linear. It is a fabric in which everything is interconnected. What we seek already exists in a different plane of reality, and our current experiences are preparing us to receive it. It is here where patience and faith become our greatest allies. Patience is not simply waiting passively, but actively trusting that everything is unfolding in its due time. And faith is not blind belief, but an inner certainty that the universe is always working in our favor, even when we cannot see the bigger picture. Imagine that you are climbing a mountain. From the base, the path may seem endless and full of obstacles, but as you climb, the view begins to change. What once seemed like senseless chaos now reveals its order. From the summit, you can see how each path, each turn, and each climb was part of a journey designed to bring you to where you are now. This is life. Every experience, every challenge is designing a unique path that leads you to your highest purpose. As we continue to explore this message, it is crucial to delve into a truth that often escapes our perception. The universe does not operate against us, but acts as a mirror to our own vibrations, thoughts, and emotions. However, this reflection does not always appear as we would like. It often disguises itself as challenges, delays, or conflicts that seem to hinder our path. But what if these apparent difficulties were actually the necessary adjustments to align us with a greater purpose? To understand this, it is essential to reflect on the idea that life is a constant conversation between us and the universe. Every thought you have, every decision you make, and every emotion you feel emits a signal, a vibration that interacts with the flow of existence. In response, the universe sends you experiences that don't always reflect what you want, but what you need to grow, learn, and transform. This principle may seem abstract, but it manifests in very concrete ways in our lives. Think of those moments when it seemed like everything was going wrong, only to discover later that those experiences led you exactly where you needed to be. Maybe you lost a job, faced a complicated relationship, or found yourself at a dead end. At the time, these situations felt like failures, like tests impossible to overcome, but looking back, you can see how each of them pushed you in a new direction, taught you something essential, or helped you discover an inner strength you didn't know you had. This is where resilience becomes a key piece. Resilience is not just the ability to withstand adversity, but to transform it into opportunities for growth. It is an act of inner power, a conscious choice to look beyond appearances and find the hidden purpose in every challenge. And in this process, we discover something fundamental. We are not victims of our circumstances, we are co-creators of our reality. A powerful example of this dynamic can be found in nature. Consider the cycle of a seed that must break open to give rise to a plant. From a limited perspective, the breaking of the seed may seem destructive, even violent. But this breaking is essential for life to emerge. Similarly, the moments of apparent destruction in our lives are not signs of failure. They are the beginning of a transformation that leads us to something greater. Moreover, the connection between our external experiences and our inner world is deeply linked to the concept of resonance. When we maintain an energy of resistance, fear, or doubt, we attract situations that reflect these emotions. But when we cultivate an attitude of openness, trust, and gratitude, the universe responds in kind, bringing experiences that align with these vibrations. This does not mean life will always be easy or that we won't face challenges, but it does imply that we can change how we perceive and face these challenges. Visualize this. You are walking down a mountainous path and suddenly find a large rock blocking your way. From a limited point of view, the rock may seem like an insurmountable obstacle, but when you stop, take a deep breath and look around, you discover there is a detour that leads to a more beautiful path, one that you wouldn't have found if it weren't for the rock. This detour was not a mistake. It was an intentional redirect designed to lead you to where you truly need to be. As we begin to understand this principle, we also realize that resistance to our circumstances is one of the main sources of suffering. Resistance arises from the belief that things should be different from what they are, that our life should follow a linear and predictable path. But life, in its essence, is dynamic, fluid, and constantly changing. When we stop resisting and begin to flow with what is happening, we find a peace and power that transcend external circumstances. This process of letting go of resistance is not passive. It does not mean accepting difficulties without questioning them or resigning ourselves to an undesirable situation. On the contrary, it is an active act of trust, a conscious choice to view every experience as an opportunity to learn, grow, and evolve. And when we do this, we begin to experience a profound change in how we relate to life. Synchronicity, that mysterious phenomenon that connects seemingly unrelated events, plays a crucial role in this process. Synchronicities are not coincidences. They are signs that we are in alignment with the universal flow. Perhaps you have experienced this before. Just when you need it most, the right person appears, an unexpected opportunity arises, or you find a message that seems to answer exactly your doubts. These experiences are not accidental. They are the result of being in tune with the energetic field that connects all things. The law of cause and effect also offers us a valuable perspective. Every action we take has a consequence, whether visible or invisible. However, these consequences often do not manifest immediately. They may take weeks, months, or even years to become evident. This is why trusting the process is so important. We cannot always see the results of our actions in the moment, but that does not mean they are not occurring. Every step we take, every decision we make, is contributing to the bigger picture of our life. Imagine you are planting a tree. At first, you don't see immediate results, only an empty plot where you've placed a seed. But over time, with the proper care, that seed begins to grow, eventually becoming a strong and robust tree. This process requires patience, trust, and the willingness to keep nurturing the seed, even when you cannot see the progress. Similarly, our actions and choices in life require the same kind of faith and dedication. Ultimately, the perception that everything is against you is an illusion created by the mind when facing the unknown. But as we delve into this perception, we discover that the unknown is not an enemy. It is fertile ground full of possibilities. Every challenge we face, every setback we experience, is an invitation to expand our consciousness, to open ourselves to new ways of being, and to connect with the deepest truth of who we are. The flow of life never stops moving. Sometimes we feel it dragging us to unknown places, far from what we consider safe or desirable. However, it is in those moments of apparent chaos that the deepest truth is revealed. Life never takes us toward what we want, but toward what we need. And if we are able to accept this flow, to allow ourselves to be carried by its currents, we discover that what seemed like obstacles were actually the necessary steps to reach our true essence. Accepting this truth is not something that comes naturally. Our minds, programmed to seek safety and control, resist change and chaos. But the paradox is that by resisting, we not only prolong suffering but also distance ourselves from the hidden opportunities that challenges bring with them. Life does not conspire against us. It offers us a mirror so that we can see clearly what parts of ourselves need to be transformed and what paths we must take to expand. To understand this dynamic, it is helpful to consider the concept of polarity, which teaches us that every experience has two aspects: pain and purpose, chaos and order, resistance and acceptance. Polarity does not mean contradiction, it means balance. Just as the night gives way to the day and the seed becomes a plant after facing the darkness of the soil, each moment of our life is designed to take us from a state of limitation to a state of expansion. In this text, it is essential to reflect on how we interpret adversity. The mind tends to label experiences as good or bad based on their immediate impact on our lives. But this classification is an illusion, because what seems like a failure in the present may become a springboard to success in the future. Think of the bamboo, which spends years developing its roots underground before growing toward the sky in a matter of weeks. This period of invisible growth is not a waste of time. It is essential preparation. Visualize this. You are in a maze, and every wrong turn seems to take you further from the exit. However, what you cannot see from your limited perspective is that each detour is bringing you closer to a key point on the path, teaching you something that you will need later. Life, like this maze, is not designed to confuse us, but to guide us toward a destination that we can only reach through the lessons we learn in the process. At this point, a natural question arises. How can we learn to trust this process, especially when we're in the midst of uncertainty? The answer lies in changing our perspective, in stopping the struggle against what we cannot control, and beginning to observe our experiences with curiosity rather than judgment. This does not mean giving up on our dreams or goals, but recognizing that the path toward them may be different from what we imagined. One of the fundamental principles that help us in this shift of perspective is the concept of impermanence. Everything in life is temporary, from our emotions to our circumstances. When we understand this, we realize that even the most difficult experiences are transient, and that every stage of our life, however painful, is destined to pass. Impermanence is not a threat. It is a promise that everything is in constant transformation. Moreover, this shift in perspective leads us to discover an even deeper truth. We are not separate from the flow of life. We are part of it. Just as a drop of water is part of the ocean, our individual experiences are part of a greater whole that operates with an intelligence beyond our understanding. This connection invites us to let go of the need to control every detail and trust that even when we cannot see the bigger picture, we are being guided toward what we need. At this point, it is useful to explore the role of our emotions in this process. Emotions are not merely reactions to our circumstances. They are signals that show us where we need to focus and what we need to heal. For example, sadness is not just a weight we carry. It is an invitation to reflect on what we value and what we are ready to let go of. Anger is not just an outburst of energy. It is a signal that something in our life is out of alignment and needs to be adjusted. When we learn to listen to our emotions, instead of repressing or judging them, we begin to see them as allies rather than enemies. This change in our relationship with our emotions allows us to navigate challenges with greater clarity and purpose, recognizing that each feeling, no matter how uncomfortable, has a message we need to hear. Another crucial aspect of this process is the practice of gratitude. Gratitude is not just an act of courtesy or a superficial exercise. It is a powerful tool that helps us change our vibration and attract experiences that align with our energy. When we choose to focus on what we have rather than what we lack, we begin to notice the blessings that are present, even in the most difficult moments. Imagine this. You are walking through a dark forest, and each step feels harder than the last. But as you continue, you begin to notice small glimpses of light filtering through the trees. These glimpses are the blessings we often overlook because we are too focused on the shadows. Gratitude helps us see that light and recognize that even in the midst of darkness, there is something we can value and appreciate. Ultimately, this process of transformation leads us to a place of self-understanding and self-confidence. We realize that we don't need to have all the answers or know all the details of the path ahead. What we truly need is the willingness to take the next step, to trust that the ground beneath our feet will reveal itself as we move forward. And in doing so, we discover that life is not only in our favor, but is also designed to help us remember who we truly are. Life is not a static event. It is a continuous flow of experiences that seem chaotic but are deeply connected in a fabric of purpose and learning. When everything seems to be against you, it is precisely when the universe is working most intensely in your favor. But to see this pattern, you need to elevate your perspective, transcend the illusion of separation, and start observing how every piece fits into a bigger design. At this point in the journey, the key is to understand that our experiences do not occur in a vacuum. Every event we face, from moments of joy to the deepest challenges, is intimately connected with our intentions, beliefs, and emotions. This is where the theory of reflection becomes essential. This theory holds that the external world acts as a mirror of our inner world, reflecting not only what we think and feel, but also the lessons we need to learn to move forward. Imagine for a moment that you're looking at a calm lake. The surface reflects everything around it, the trees, the sky, even the clouds moving slowly. But if you look more closely, you will notice that the water doesn't just reflect the external. It also reflects what is right in front of it, including yourself. This is how life works. Each situation, each relationship, each challenge is a mirror that shows us something about ourselves that we need to see. This principle can be uncomfortable at first. It's easier to blame the external world for our difficulties than to accept that these difficulties may be reflecting something internal. But this discomfort is the first step toward transformation, because once we accept that the world is our mirror, we reclaim the power to change our reality. We are no longer victims of circumstances. We are conscious co-creators of our experience. The practice of observing our life as a reflection requires courage and honesty. It involves asking questions that go beyond the surface. What is this experience showing me about my beliefs? What patterns am I repeating? What parts of myself am I ignoring or suppressing? These questions are not easy to answer, but they are essential for uncovering the hidden lessons in each challenge. A powerful example of this can be found in our relationships. Often the people who challenge us the most are the ones who have the most to teach us. Perhaps you constantly find yourself in conflict with someone who seems not to understand you or who challenges your boundaries. From a limited perspective, this person might seem like an obstacle in your path. But if you look more deeply, you may discover that this relationship is reflecting something within you. Perhaps an unexpressed need, a boundary you haven't set, or a wound that needs healing. The relationship between the inner and outer also manifests in our emotions. The emotions that are most difficult for us to handle are often the ones that have the most to teach us. Sadness, for example, is not just a weight we carry, it is an invitation to reflect on what we value and what we are ready to let go of. Similarly, anger is not just an outburst of energy, it is a signal that something in our life is out of alignment and needs to be adjusted. This is where the concept of radical acceptance becomes crucial. Radical acceptance doesn't mean resigning ourselves to circumstances or tolerating the intolerable. It means recognizing what is, just as it is, without resistance or judgment. When we practice radical acceptance, we stop fighting against reality and begin working with it. This shift in perspective allows us to see our circumstances not as problems that must be solved, but as opportunities for growth. Visualize this. You are navigating a river, and the current starts to intensify. Your initial instinct might be to paddle against the current, struggling to maintain control. But the more you fight, the more exhausted you become, and the harder it gets to move forward. Now imagine that you let go of the paddles and allow the current to take you. Suddenly, you realize that the current isn't there to stop you. It's there to guide you, to take you to a place you couldn't reach on your own. This shift in focus also helps us understand the role of time in our lives. We often feel that time is working against us, that we don't have enough time to reach our goals, or that delays are a sign of failure. But when we look at time from a broader perspective, we realize that it is not linear. It is a flow that adjusts to our internal rhythm. Delays are not punishments. They are necessary pauses so we can realign ourselves with our purpose. Moreover, synchronicity becomes a constant reminder that we are not alone on this journey. These meaningful coincidences are like signs along the way, guiding us to where we need to be. Maybe you're struggling with an important decision, and just at that moment, you find a message, a conversation, or an opportunity that seems to answer your questions. These synchronicities are not accidental. They are the way the universe communicates with you, showing you that you're on the right path. Another important aspect of this process is working with our beliefs. Many of the limitations we face are not in the external world, they are in our own minds. Beliefs like, "I'm not enough," "I don't deserve success," or "things always go wrong" act as invisible barriers that prevent us from seeing the opportunities right in front of us. But when we begin to question these beliefs and replace them with truths that reflect our authenticity, our lives begin to transform. Imagine you're wearing glasses that distort everything you see. Every time you look at the world, it all seems blurry or out of place. But these glasses are not permanent. You can take them off at any time, and when you do, you realize that the world wasn't the problem. It was the way you were seeing it. This is the power of working with our beliefs. It allows us to change our perspective, and in doing so, change our reality. Ultimately, the process of accepting that everything is in our favor, even when it seems to be against us, requires a profound shift in our relationship with ourselves and with the world. It requires trusting that each experience, no matter how difficult, has a purpose, and that each one is an opportunity for expansion. By making this shift, we discover that life is not something that happens to us. It is something we create, moment by moment, with each choice, each thought, and each emotion. At this point in the journey, it is inevitable to reflect on the power we have to shape our perception. When everything seems to be against us, the tendency is to fall into despair, into the narrative that life is punishing us, or that we are victims of an unfair destiny. However, this thought arises from a fundamental misunderstanding of how reality works. The truth is, life does not happen to us. Life responds to who we are, how we think, and above all, how we choose to perceive it. Perception acts as a filter that determines not only how we interpret the events in our lives, but also what opportunities and solutions we are able to see. Think of perception as a pair of glasses. Depending on the lenses you wear, the world may seem dark and hostile or full of possibilities and hope. Changing this filter is not a superficial act. It is a deep process of self-discovery that invites us to question our most deeply held beliefs and to open ourselves to new ways of seeing and experiencing life. A powerful tool in this process is mindful focus, which invites us to direct our attention to what is working instead of what seems to be failing. This does not mean ignoring challenges or pretending everything is fine when it's not. It means recognizing that, even in the midst of adversity, there is always something to value, something to learn, and something to be grateful for. This shift in focus allows us to move from fear to curiosity, from resistance to acceptance, and from frustration to creativity. Imagine you're caught in a storm. The wind is strong, the rain is intense, and there seems to be no shelter in sight. But as you look closer, you notice a cave in the distance, a place where you can take shelter and reflect. The storm doesn't immediately disappear, but inside the cave, you find the clarity to plan your next move. This is the power of mindful focus. It doesn't eliminate the storms of life, but it helps us find the inner shelter we need to navigate through them. Another crucial aspect of this process is understanding that our perceptions are not set in stone. They are shaped by our beliefs, our past experiences, and our expectations. Often, we face challenging situations not because life is inherently difficult, but because we are seeing reality through lenses distorted by fear, doubt, or resentment. By working to change these lenses, we can radically transform our experience of reality. This is where the concept of conscious responsibility comes into play. Responsibility is not the same as guilt. Blaming ourselves for our circumstances only perpetuates a cycle of victimization and self-criticism. But taking responsibility for how we interpret and respond to our circumstances gives us the power to transform them. This conscious responsibility reminds us that we cannot always control what happens around us, but we can always choose how we react. Visualize this. You're walking along a path and come across a fork. One path seems dark and full of obstacles, while the other appears clearer and more accessible. From an external perspective, both paths are part of the same terrain, but your experience of each depends on which one you choose to walk and how you decide to face it. In the same way, life constantly presents us with choices, and our experience depends on the decisions we make at each moment. Conscious responsibility also invites us to explore how our emotions influence our perception. When we feel trapped by fear or anger, it's easy to see the world as a threatening place. But when we cultivate emotions like gratitude, trust, and hope, we begin to see possibilities where we once only saw problems. This shift doesn't happen overnight, but it is a process we can practice every day, starting with small steps, like noticing and appreciating the positive things in our life, no matter how small they may be. Additionally, this process leads us to deepen the concept of impermanence, which teaches us that everything in life is constantly changing. The emotions we feel today, no matter how intense, are not permanent. The circumstances we face, no matter how challenging, will also pass. When we understand this, we find comfort in knowing that we are not trapped in our current experiences. We are in a constant flow of transformation. However, accepting impermanence doesn't mean ignoring our challenges or minimizing our emotions. It means recognizing that every moment, no matter how difficult, has a purpose in our journey of self-discovery. And when we view our experiences from this perspective, we begin to see challenges not as obstacles, but as opportunities to grow and evolve. In this context, synchronicity becomes a valuable tool. These meaningful coincidences remind us that we are not alone on our path. Maybe you're facing a difficult decision, and suddenly you overhear a conversation that answers your questions, or find a book that seems written specifically for you. These experiences are not accidents. They are signs that the universe is working with you, guiding you to where you need to be. But to recognize these signs, we must be open and present. The mind, when trapped in fear or worry, often overlooks these opportunities. But when we cultivate an attitude of openness and trust, we begin to notice the signs that have always been there, waiting to be seen. Visualize this. You're walking through a forest looking for a path that will lead you out of the darkness. At first, everything seems confusing and disorienting, but as you adjust your focus and allow your eyes to adapt, you begin to notice small glimmers of light that guide you forward. These lights have always been there, but you needed to adjust your perception to see them. This is how synchronicity works in our life. Ultimately, this process of changing our perception and taking conscious responsibility leads us to a place of empowerment. We realize that we are not at the mercy of external circumstances. We have the power to choose how we live, how we interpret our experiences, and how we create our reality. By making these choices from a place of authenticity and purpose, we discover that life is not against us. It is working in our favor, helping us remember our strength, resilience, and infinite potential. At this point, we have explored how the challenges we face are not insurmountable barriers, but portals to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. The apparent adversity is merely a mask that hides essential lessons, and what we perceive as obstacles are actually opportunities to align with our highest purpose. But what happens when we take the final leap? When we decide to accept that everything, absolutely everything, is designed for our growth. In this final stage of the journey, life transitions from something we merely experience to something we actively create. The first step towards conscious creation is realizing that we are co-creators of our reality. While we may not control every detail, our choices, thoughts, and emotions serve as catalysts that guide the flow of existence. Every thought sends a signal to the universe, and every emotion emits a vibration that attracts similar experiences. This process is neither linear nor immediate, but it is constant and powerful. Imagine throwing a stone into a calm lake. The ripples spread in all directions, interacting with the water and reflecting light before returning to you in unexpected ways. This is how our actions, thoughts, and emotions affect the energetic field around us. Every decision creates waves that shape our experience and the experiences of others. Trusting the process becomes essential. We often seek immediate results, clear signs of our impact, but conscious creation requires patience and faith. We can't always see the fruits of our choices immediately, but they are growing like a seed turning into a tree. Intentions and actions need time to manifest. This process also invites us to examine our relationship with control. The desire to control arises from fear, thinking that if we don't hold tight, everything will fall apart. But true mastery lies in surrender. By surrendering to the flow of life, we let the universe guide us to experiences beyond our imagination. This doesn't mean passivity. It means acting with intention and purpose, while remaining flexible to the moment's flow. We also begin to notice how our actions impact others. The interconnectedness of all things becomes clear, showing that every choice has a ripple effect. A small act of kindness may inspire another, creating a domino effect that transforms lives. Visualize yourself as part of an infinite network, where every thought and emotion is a thread contributing to the greater design. When you act from a place of love and purpose, you strengthen the threads that hold this network together, creating a positive impact beyond the visible. At this stage, integration of lessons learned becomes key. Acceptance, responsibility, trust, and surrender become daily practices that transform our perspective. These practices don't remove life's challenges, but equip us to face them with clarity and compassion. Alignment becomes essential. It's a dynamic process of adjusting to our deepest truth. When aligned, our actions, thoughts, and emotions flow harmoniously, facilitating the manifestation of our intentions. Alignment requires honesty, asking, am I living according to my values? Am I choosing from love or fear? Imagine tuning an instrument. At first, the strings may be out of tune, but with patience, you adjust them until they create a beautiful melody. This is alignment in life. Imperfect, but each adjustment brings us closer to harmony. Ultimately, this journey leads to deep gratitude. Gratitude is not just a feeling, but a practice that connects us to the present and helps us see blessings, even amidst challenges. Practicing gratitude shifts our vibration, attracting positive experiences. It reminds us that while we can't always control our circumstances, we can choose how we respond. Picture this. At the end of a long day, you watch the sunset. The clouds that were there all day are now painted with brilliant colors, reminding you that even difficult days have beauty and meaning. Gratitude is that sunset, the ability to find light in the darkest moments.